श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
Asmad-Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad-Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmad-Sarva-Gurubhyo Namaha. So, we're continuing on with our discussion of Sri Vacana Bhusanam by Pillai Lokacharya, with a commentary by Manavala Mahamunigal. So we finished Sutra 104, and we're going to continue with Sutras 105 to 110, which we have an audio for.
ஆழ்வார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், எம்பெருமானார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், பிள்ளை லோகாச்சாரியர் திருவடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம். Sri Vacana Bhusanam, 105th Sutram. Before we go into today's Sutrams, let us briefly look into what Pillai Lokacharya taught us in the past few Sutrams. In the past few Sutrams, Pillai Lokacharya very beautifully taught how the aversion for material things happens for different categories of people. For people like Alvars, the beauty and the Saundarya of Lord Sriman Narayana is the cause. For people like our Acharyas, Purvacharyas, the grace of Lord Sriman Narayana is the cause. And for normal people like us, the achara or the habits and practices of our Purvacharyas is the one that causes fear. Now, in this set of sutras, Pillai Lokacharya goes a step much more deeper and talks about the true cause for the aversion, for the distaste for material things, and the true cause for affection and attraction, immersion towards Lord Sriman Narayana. Let us see what they are. We will see 3 sutras together, 105, 106 and 107, and then we will see a few more sutras today. Sutrams 105, 106 and 107. Aruchi pirakkum bodhaikku dosha darshanam apekshithamai irukkum. Adu pradhana hetu vandru. Apraptataye pradhana hetu. When the distaste is born, the dosha darshanam, the clear understanding of the defects in material enjoyment is apekshita, is also wanted. Adu pradhana hetu vandru. But is that dosha darshana the primary cause for distaste to develop? The answer is no. That is 106th Sutram. And the 107th Sutram says the pradhana hetu, the primary reason for that development of distaste is the true nature of the soul and the incongruence of material pleasures to the true nature of the soul. Apraptataye pradhana hetu. How is that? We will see through the use of the Vyakyanam of Manavala Mahamunigal. People like Alvars, who are completely immersed in Lord Sriman Narayana's gunas and Lord Sriman Narayana's beauty, they are completely immersed. When they are completely immersed, it is possible that they do not even know about anything else other than Lord Sriman Narayana. So they don't know anything. They know only Lord Sriman Narayana. That is one case. If we look at the habits and practices followed by our Purvacharyas, what is the right thing to do and what is not the right thing to do, and if we follow that and if we apply that in our lives, it is clear that we will develop some fear of doing things that are not supposed to be done and fear of not doing things that is supposed to be done. That is acceptable. However, how is it that the distaste for material enjoyment goes? We have been used to material enjoyment in the countless births that we have had before and also in the current birth. Isn't it extremely difficult to develop that distaste and aversion towards material desire? What is the cause for that to go? Is the question. That distaste has to come only through Lord Sriman Narayana's grace. There is no doubt about that. But when that desire goes, when that distaste and aversion comes, and another thing also comes, which is dosha darsanam, the clear seeing or the clear understanding of the defects in the material enjoyment. One example is given. Human beings are attracted towards other human beings. A man is attracted to a woman is attracted to a man. A clear attraction is there, physical attraction is there. However, when that aversion and distaste comes, they also get a new knowledge. And that knowledge is the temporary nature and the impurity of the material enjoyment in attraction, in enjoying another human being. Because the body that we have is made of material things. And we know that the body has a lot of impurities. All kinds of fluids are there in the body. The body has a lot of distasteful things also, like bad smell sometimes, and many other things. Hence, that understanding, that clear understanding that this material pleasure is mixed with sorrow, it is mixed with things that are not likable, and it is temporary and not permanent, and it is only of a limited quantity. It is alpa, it is not infinite, it is only limited. This clear knowledge also is there when that aruchi, when that distaste for material thing comes. That is the 105th Sutra. Then the question that arises is this dosha darsanam, is this understanding, clear seeing of the defects in material enjoyment, defects in material things, is that the primary reason to develop that distaste for material things? The answer is no. That is what is said in 106th Sutram. And the 107th Sutram goes a step further and say the primary reason for this is the incongruence of material pleasures with the nature of the soul. We've seen earlier on that the true nature of the soul is ananya bhogyatvam, which is not enjoying anything other than service to Lord Sriman Narayana to create happiness, to create pleasure to Lord Sriman Narayana, to make him happy. That is the only bhogya, ananya bhogyatvam. There is no other bhogya, there is no other enjoyment for the soul in its true state. Pulelokacharya says that the primary cause for developing aversion and distaste towards material things is because material enjoyment is fundamentally incongruent, is fundamentally against the true nature of the soul. The true nature of the soul being service to Lord Sriman Narayana is the only enjoyment. In the 108th Sutra, it is said, Bhagavat Vishayatil Iligiradum Gunam Kandandru Swarupa Praptam Ennu. It says, the immersion in Lord Sriman Narayana's qualities and in Lord Sriman Narayana's beauty and in service to Lord Sriman Narayana, that complete immersion is not primarily because of the vision or because of the understanding of Lord Sriman Narayana's gunas and beauty. It is because Swarupa Praptamenne, congruent to the true nature of the soul. What we learned so far today is two things. The true nature of the soul, Ananya Bhogyatvam, and that of doing service to Lord Sriman Narayana all the time. This is the primary reason. The true nature of the soul is the primary reason to develop aversion towards material things and to develop the pravanyam and to develop the immersion in Lord Sriman Narayana, his beauty, his gunas, and in doing kainkaryam to him. Other things are secondary causes, not the primary cause. Then in 109th Sutram, Pillai Lokacharya explains what happens if we think that the true nature of the soul is not the primary reason for development of attraction towards Lord Sriman Narayana and aversion towards material things. இப்படி கொள்ளாத போது குணஹீனம் என்று நினைத்த திசையில் பகவத் விஷய பிரவೃತ್ತಿயும் தோஷானுசந்தான திசையில் சம்சாரத்தில் பிரவೃತ್ತಿயும் கூடாது. If we don't take it that way, then what we see normally won't happen. What do we see normally? When we see Alvars are completely immersed in Lord Sriman Narayana and his gunas. They always want to reach him. They sing about him, they praise him, they pine and they long for reaching Lord Sriman Narayana. But Lord Sriman Narayana does not take them immediately. So during that time, we see that the Alvars many times, they are somewhat questioning the gunas of Lord Sriman Narayana. They call him, you are a cheat, you are a hard-hearted person, and so on they call. When that happens, if the true reason to go after Lord Sriman Narayana is the gunas, is the qualities of Lord Sriman Narayana, it hasn't taken them to Lord Sriman Narayana. At that time, they are calling him a cheat, they are calling him somebody who is hard-hearted. Shouldn't they turn away and then go away from Lord Sriman Narayana if the gunas were the primary reason that they are attracted to him? That would be logical, isn't it? However, we see at that time that Alvars do not turn away from Lord Sriman Narayana. Even in that state, their pining, their longing for Lord Sriman Narayana increases. In fact, they more forcefully say that they would like to reach him, they would like to attain him. So what we see is not logically corresponding. We cannot make clear meaning out of what we see if we think that the gunas are the primary reason for us to be attracted to Lord Sriman Narayana. Similarly, if we understand or if we think that the understanding of the defects in material enjoyment is the reason for us to develop aversion towards material enjoyment, that also does not correspond to what we see every day. All of us know the defects in material things. We all know that material enjoyment is temporary, it is limited, and it is also mixed with sorrow. But still, we are attracted towards material things. It is not as if we know this and hence we have developed a distaste towards material things. We are still attracted, isn't it? So if we understand that this dosha darshanam is the cause for developing aversion towards material things, that does not correspond to what we see, similar to what we saw before. And hence, it is emphasized that the true nature for developing, the true cause, the primary cause for developing aversion towards material things and attraction towards Lord Sriman Narayana is the nature of the soul itself, of not enjoying anything other than Lord Sriman Narayana, Ananya Bhogyatvam, and of doing service to Lord Sriman Narayana because he is the master and we are the servant, and that is the nature between us and Lord Sriman Narayana. Now in the next sutram, 110th sutram, Pillai Lokacharya gives pramana, gives proof from Alvar's works for this. கொடிய என் நெஞ்சம் அவனன்னே கிடக்கும் அடியேன் நான் பின்னும் உன் சேவடி அன்னி நயவேன் என்னா நின்னார்களிரே. So these are statements or sentences from Arulichel, from Alvar's Pasurams. Let us quickly see what they are. The first one is from Nammalvar. Nammalvar says this in Thiruvaimozhi. Beautifully in one Pasuram he says, கடியன் கொடியன் நெடியமால் உலகம் கொண்ட அடியன் அறிவருமேனி மாயத்தன். That means Kadiyan, he is very hard. He wants to do only things that are attracted to him. Swakarya para. Whatever he wants, he will do. Nothing else he will do. Kadiyan. Kodiyan, he is somebody who does not know the pain of others. Nediyamal, he is so supreme that nobody can reach him. Ulaham Kondavadiyan, he is a cheat. Vanchaka, like he did during Trivikrama Avatara. Arivarumeni Mayattan, no one can understand his true nature. So these are things that Alvar says. He basically is scolding Perumal, we can say, isn't it? If we call somebody, you are selfish, you don't know the difficulties that others have, nobody can reach you, you are a vanchaka, nobody can understand you. This means, they are not praising him, right? They are basically, scolding him. We can say that, right? But after that, the next sentence Alvar says, Ahilum kodiya en nenjam avananne kidakkumelle. Even with all these things, oh, my cruel heart, it is saying, Avananne kidakkumenne. It always wants to reach him. It says, he is the only one I want to reach. It says, what do I do? He says. That is the example that is given here for the first thing, which is the true nature of the soul is what causes the attraction to Lord Sriman Narayana. The second example is from Thirumangai Alvar. Adiyen naan pinnum mun sevadi anni nayaven. So here the pasuram is Vembin Puru Vembanni Unnadu Adiyen Nan Pinnum Un Sevadi Anni Nayaven. So here Vembin Puru Vembanni Unnadu means Vembu means Vepamaram. Vepamaram is neem tree. So the worm that is present in the neem tree, it will eat only neem leaves and the neem bark. Even if you go and feed it sugarcane, it won't eat the sugarcane. It eats only stuff that is coming out of the neem tree. Vembin Puru Vembanni Unnadu. Similarly, Adiyen Nan Pinnum Un Sevadi Anni Nayaven. Similar to that, no matter how you are, whether you are sweet, whether you are bitter like the neem tree, and sometimes whether you don't take me immediately, whether you take me, it does not matter what it is. I will always want to reach your lotus feet. I will always pine after your lotus feet. I will always want to do service to you. That is what Thirumangai says here. Kalva, Kadal Mallai Kedanda Karumbe Yennumbadi, Parama Bhogyanana Nidane, Vembu Pole, Virasapatta Podilum, Bahutta Seshiana, one of the Tiruvadegale, Uriya, Viramba Marten. Like that, one commentator has given beautifully. Similar to a sugar cane, which is very sweet. If you are the Paramabhogya, who is normally like sugar cane, but even that Paramabhogya, that beautiful sweet sugar cane, sometimes if you are like that bitter neem tree or neem fruit or the neem leaf, it is okay. Even at that time, you are the master, I am the servant. I will want only your lotus feet. This is what Thirumangai has said. Again, this is to emphasize that the true cause for wanting to reach Lord Sriman Narayana and doing service to him is the true nature of the soul. Primarily, not the gunas of Lord Sriman Narayana. This is the summary of today. So today, the key thing for us to take is that the true reason why people pine for Lord Sriman Narayana and develop material aversion towards material things is the true nature of the soul, which is non-enjoyment of anything other than Lord Sriman Narayana and service to Lord Sriman Narayana.
Yeah, we were discussing last time about material enjoyment. And he is explaining rightfully that to serve Sriman Narayan gives higher enjoyment because it's the true nature of the soul. And that's very nice. Yeah.
Right. So the important thing to understand from this section is that he's saying that sometimes we think that aversion to material sense gratification is going to come about by meditating upon how horrible material sense gratification is. But we can see that through many millions of births, we have had the experience of material sense gratification and we haven't got sick of it. So we've been thinking about it a lot. We've been experiencing it a lot and we haven't become sick of it. Chewing the chewed. Prabhupada used to say chewing the chewed. So we're still chewing it. We're not averse to it because of that. So that's not going to do it. And the other thing is some people say, well, just experience the greatness of God, the great qualities of God. And this can also be, some people say, if you look in the scriptures, it says by experiencing a higher taste, if you look at Sriman Narayana, if you experience his beauty and everything like that, then you'll automatically give up material sense gratification, okay? But he's saying here, even that isn't the cause. Even that isn't the cause. The real cause, the ultimate cause, is self-realization. Self-realization. Once you realize that the soul is only to be enjoyed by Sriman Narayana, and the real nature of the soul is a slave or a servant, and completely own a piece of property of Sriman Narayana, when you understand that, then only you understand things in proper contrast. So people may say, sometimes people say, oh, Krishna, the word Krishna means all attractive. So because Krishna is all attractive, naturally you'll be attracted to him so much that you'll give up sense gratification. Have we seen that work? Have we seen devotees who are attracted to Krishna, we're all attracted to Krishna, to Rama, to all these forms of the Lord. Have we seen our attraction for the Lord somehow diminish the appeal of sense gratification? No, not really. Have we seen our being told that material sense gratification is bad and is going to keep us in this material world, is going to send us to hell, right? Have we seen that work? No, that hasn't worked either. So really, the point he's making here is we have to understand that self-realization is the only way, the ultimate way to understand the true nature of things as they are. And that's the point of this particular thing. Here we have, this is the first quote that he was discussing in Sutra 110. This is from Tiruvai 535. O sister, you have a slender waist, but a frail heart. Maybe the Lord is selfish, wicked, and far away. So here he was talking about how the Prapana is, the person who's singing this, right, is actually he's scolding the Lord in a way. Maybe he is a world grabber and hard to understand. Pity my wicked heart still longs for him alone. What can mother do? Okay, so this is one of the prayers that he explained. This is by Namawa Tiruvai 535. And the other one is Periya Tirumoli, which is by Tirumangayawar 1187. O Lord, who rid the waning moon of misery, O radiant Lord reclining on the five-hooded snake, just as a caterpillar growing from the bitter neem tree still eats only neem, I seek none other than your feet. So what's natural for the soul? What is natural for the soul is to be a servant of Sriman Narayana. Just like in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they say, Jiver Swarupoi Nitya Krishna Das. We're eternally servants of God. And that's the important part here. So the example given is just like a bug or a caterpillar, he says here, was a type of worm that eats a neem tree, right? Even though that worm eats the neem tree, it only eats the neem tree, even if you give it, because its nature is to eat the neem tree, even if you give it some other wood to eat, which isn't bitter, because the neem tree wood is bitter. Even though you give it this other wood, it won't like it. It'll only like the neem tree. I guess in Australia we have the koalas. They only eat eucalyptus leaves. They don't like any other leaves. Or in China you have the panda, only eats the bamboo. Won't eat any other thing. So like that. So similarly, the nature of the soul is that it only worships Sriman Narayana. It is the slave of Sriman Narayana. And with property, we understand that that's the only thing which is important in property is who we surrender to. So just like that, even though we objectively we might say that caterpillar or that worm eating neem could eat some other thing which is sweet, but the neem is bitter. Why does it eat the neem wood? That's because its nature is that. So the nature of the soul is to be the servant of Sriman Narayana and nobody else, and therefore that coming to that self-realization that we are the servant of Sriman Narayana and nobody else, that is the most important thing, and that is the thing which ultimately leads to us to moksha, and is the cause for aversion to material sense gratification. Continuing on, I'm going to put in the chat the next sutra. The next set of sutras, 2 sutras, talk about servitude. Servitude occasioned by the realization of one's quintessence is better than servitude arising from perception of divine beauty. Service to the Lord by virtue of the realizations of one's quintessence or one's essence, not conditioned by extraneous considerations or inducements, is of greater value than service which is motivated by divine ascetics. So, for example, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they talk about Raganuga Bhakti, that one will appreciate the divine name, form, quality, pastimes of the Lord, and that one will have this, what is it called? They call it laba or greed. They'll have certain greed to perform worship and to perform service in a particular way to the Lord, and will want to hear about his name, form, qualities, and pastimes like this. Okay, so that's one way. And what it's saying here, but service actually, which is based on the self-realization that we are actually the property and the servant and the slave of the Lord, this is actually considered better in Sri Vaishnavism. So service motivated by realizing the essential nature of the soul is more important than service motivated by sensing the qualities of the Lord. Quite the opposite is stated in Sutra 111. So we just have a look at Sutra 111, which was the last one, referring to, therefore, if someone stating, who have been compelled by his virtues to become a slave, comes to the discussion. For the same, the author through the sutra responds appropriately. And the commentary is, service motivated by qualities means that becoming a failure by perceiving the auspicious qualities of the Lord, one becomes the servant of the Lord. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. Service motivated by realizing the essential nature of the soul means that the soul, by itself realizing its sheshatva of the Lord and becomes a servant to him. Though the nature of the servitude is as such, the state of becoming as such, by seeing the good characteristic features of the Lord, may forever to humanity. Not very good English here. So that only knowing Sri Lakshmana through his servitude to Sri Rama expresses his feeling, as it is quoted in the introductory part of the sutra. Since the sense of servitude as against the qualities of the Lord should be due to some reason, it becomes as secondary. But since the servitude without expecting anything and based on the essential nature of the soul would be beyond reason, it is because it is to be considered as the primary and most important one. Thus, in order to stress the importance of the fact only, the author graciously declares as realizing the essential nature of the soul in the sense of service is the motive which is most important. Okay, so the point here is to cut through all that and explain that in a simple way. Basically, what he's saying is that if the soul is motivated to service because the Lord is so great, or because the Lord is God, or because the Lord is so beautiful, or that he has great pastimes, or we feel bliss from his name or his worship or something like that, that is secondary, because that all comes from outside. That comes from outside the soul. But what comes from inside the soul is the realization that we are the slave of the Lord, that our eternal nature is to be a servant, is to be a slave, is to be the property of the Lord. And therefore, it's essential to us, and that comes from within us. That is the nature of the soul, and therefore that's the primary cause. It's not saying that there can't be other causes, but that's the primary cause. So then he goes on to the next sutra, 112, and I'll put that in the chat. 112. And 112 says, let us recall the words which goddess Sita spoke to Anusuya. Now, if you remember, Rama and Sita and Lakshmana went to the forest. They were banished for 14 years or whatever number of years. And they went to the hermitage of sage Atri. And Atri's wife was Anusuya. And so Atri and Anusuya, they basically became the gurus of Rama and Sita to explain to them how to live in the forest, because they were used to living in in the palace in Ayodhya, and they had come to Chitrakuta, which is near on the border with Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. If anybody's ever been there, so you can go to that hermitage. And Anusuya became the guru of Sita because Sita had to learn how to do things out in the forest. So basically, she got taught a lesson in camping, how to prepare food and how to do things in the forest that she would have to do to be with Rama and Lakshmana. So Anusuya was like her guru. So let us recall the words of Goddess Sita, who she spoke to Anusuya, who's her guru, right? Congratulating Sita on her devotion to her husband, Anusuya, the wife of sage Atri, exhorted that the husband should be venerated like God himself, be he in town or in forest, ill or well. So this is what we hear in wedding ceremonies all the time, marriage ceremonies. We hear in sickness or in health, right? The spouse should be respected and adored and loved, right? In sickness or in health, in the town or in the village or in the forest. So whether Sita is in the palace in Ayodhya or whether she's in the forest, Anusuya is saying that Lord Rama is your husband and you have to venerate him like this. Sita, with downcast eyes, bashfully replied, "My love for Rama is spontaneous. And yet, people are likely to construe that I love him because of his excellence, both physical and mental." Right? So her love for Rama, Sita's love for Rama, wasn't because that he was so good looking or he was so great with the bow or an arrow or he was so virtuous or whatever. It was spontaneous. It is indeed difficult for me to prove that my fidelity has no strings attached to it and that it stands without external provocation or inducements. As Rama, external provocation or inducements. So this is what we're talking about in the previous sutras. We're talking about there are external reasons. Aversion to sense gratification may push you towards God, right? Or the attraction to God, his name, his form, his qualities, his pastimes, may push you towards God. But these are external things, and the internal thing in the soul, the essential primary thing, is that a realization that you are actually a servant of God. So that is spontaneous, once the realization is there. My love for Rama is spontaneous, and yet people are likely to construe that I love him because of his excellence, both physical and mental. It is indeed difficult to prove that my fidelity has no strings attached to it and that it stands without external provocation or inducements, as Rama can't be separated from his excellences. My fidelity to Rama will remain constant even if he were the reverse of what he is. Even if he were the reverse of what he is. So even if Sriman Narayana is the reverse, even if he's not a merciful God, even if he's not a loving God, even if he has all bad qualities, still, because the essential nature of the soul is to be his slave or be his worshipper, right? To serve him, right? That is not going to change, whether he's merciful or he's not merciful. We can see this attitude is given there by Chaitanya in his Shikshastika, where he says, even if he crushes me by his embrace, he's still my worshipable Lord birth after birth. So the idea is that we may be attracted to Krishna, we may be attracted to Sriman Narayana or all the different forms of Sriman Narayana, of God, for all of his Ananta Kalyana Gunas, his infinite auspicious qualities. We may be attracted to him because of that. But even if he didn't have infinite auspicious qualities, even if he had the reverse of that, if he had all bad qualities, still we would have to serve him because it's our inherent primary nature as Jivatmans, as sentient beings created by him, right? That to serve him. That may sound a little harsh, but that's the way it is. So it's just very much like this idea in a marriage ceremony or wedding ceremony, in sickness or in health. They say in sickness or in health, good times or bad times, you have to put up with. So it's very interesting. So once Rama and his wife entered the hermitage of Saint Atri, right, and received his best wishes, they then went into the near place of Anusuya, the wife of the saint, to show their obedience. At that time, Anusuya, by seeing Sita, right, said that by leaving the relatives, never minding the degradation, going into the forest and putting aside property of living in Ayodhya in the palace and everything, coming behind Lord Rama, Perumal, to the forest, would be attained by you because of your good karma. Actually, to ladies, the god would be her husband, who may be at hell. I don't know what that means exactly. May be at the forest, or may be good, or may not be good. She should always accompany your husband and extend service to his every way of life. In response to Anusuya, Sita said, with all kinds of shyness and humiliation, graciously said, though the love with the Lord is natural, people think that my love to him is because of his superior qualities. Since I'm not able to differentiate him with his qualities, and normally we don't differentiate God with his qualities. We think of God. In fact, we think of the qualities of the Lord when we think of God. We don't just think of God, but we think of his qualities also, especially his quality of all pervasiveness or vyapaka nature. So since we think of his qualities, since I'm unable to differentiate him from his qualities, I am inexpressible to state my actual status of existence with him. Though he is qualityless, beautyless at that time, also, I could be with him only. So even if he didn't have any qualities, or the exact opposite, which is stated in the other translation, if he had bad qualities. So by judging the truth, content of Sita's above words, this can be taken as authentic pramana to the facts of Sutra 111.
So would you say that the way that Sri Vaishnavas realize this, I guess is if you're born as a Sri Vaishnava, you'll hear this from birth, that, you're eternal servant of the Lord. But if one becomes a Sri Vaishnava, and say they're not coming even from another Vaishnava background, you may realize it theoretically by hearing it all the time, but how it is that one really actually imbibes that and realizes that? Is there like a process, or is it just by hearing, just by shravanam, that we keep on hearing?
Imbibing what? The idea that we are the servants or the slaves of the Lord.
The quintessence of the soul, which is to understand that, yes.
It's similar process to what you were told in ISKCON or in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. They're saying that you're not this body, first of all. You're the soul within the body. And what is the soul? The nature of the soul is Jiva Swarupoy Nitya Krishna Das. He's the eternal servant of Krishna. So the nature, that's all they're saying here, is that the nature of the soul is the eternal servant of God. Now, there's the difference between Gaudiya Vaishnavism and what's being said here is that they're saying that's the most important thing. That's the primary cause. That understanding is the primary cause of actually acting in that way, acting as a servant of God. So how do you come to that realization? Again, service to God is not the process. That service to God is bhakti yoga. Serving God, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaram, Padasevanam, Achanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakamatmani, Vedanam, Navada Bhakti, these services that we can offer to God. That's bhakti yoga. Of course, we want the Lord to be pleased. We want him to be pleased. And we want to serve him. But actually, he's working through us. Whenever we do anything, he's working through us, and we understand that we can't really do anything. We just have to be submissive So we have to cultivate that submission, that's all. We have to just cultivate that submission. It's not that by doing anything, or even by thinking anything, right, that we're going to attain moksha. It's only by His grace that we're going to attain moksha. We're going to attain His service in either here or in Sri Vaikuntha in moksha. So, but we should endeavor to understand the situation as it is. The situation as it is that we're the property, we're the slaves of, we're the servants of God. So just by understanding that, everything else will come from that. How to understand it? Yeah, it's difficult to understand it. Therefore, God doesn't give us. He doesn't. I mean, there are. You can understand by working and giving up the fruits. You can understand that you're a servant of God by studying the scriptures intensely. That's karma yoga. And then jnana yoga, by studying the scriptures intensely, maybe you come to a theoretical understanding that you're a servant of God. That's jnana yoga. And bhakti yoga, by serving Him in so many devotional aspects, you can come to the realization like that. But ultimately, if you just simply surrender, that's the point. The point is you're a slave. So give up. Just stop struggling, and accept it, and accept that you're a slave of the Lord. That's the realization. That is the realization. That's property. So property, it's one comes from the other. Without that understanding, of the true nature of the soul, you can't really say someone is fully realized or is fully done property. But the point is, Lord Rama says, just do it once. Just try and do it once. Sakrideva Prapannaya Tavasmiti, just, I'm yours. Just say it, I'm yours once, or think it once, like that, and then I'll take over. So it's not necessary for us to constantly think like this. If we're totally pure and everything, we will constantly think like this. The Awaras and Acharyas are constantly thinking like this. They're constantly thinking that they're the true nature of the soul, that they're the slaves of the Lord. They're constantly thinking like that. Everything that they do is like that. Everything that we do is not like that. But somehow or other, at least once, we have to think like that. And that is the cause of Sriman Narayana taking notice of us and saying, okay, he is, at least once he thought like this, or she thought like this, and therefore I'm going to take that as an excuse and I'm going to save that person. So when we say self-realization is the most important thing, at the same time, one may not come to a point of constant self-realization, but at least if one can try once only to imbibe that, to try to imbibe that. What do they say? Okay, this in English we say "fake it till you make it," right? That's an American saying or an English saying. Fake it till you make it. So, how do you? Sometimes people say, somebody asks Prabhupada, well, how do you become humble? Just try. Just practice. Try to become humble, like that. So, how do we do anything? How do we practice makes perfect. So somehow we have to practice the consciousness. So when we get up in the morning, we practice thinking that we've wasted our life, that we should have actually spent our whole life surrendered to Sriman Narayana, and we should have done his service from the very beginning. But unfortunately, we spent so many years doing other things. And so we regret that. And then we get up and we go forward that day thinking that today we're going to definitely do better than what we've done in the rest of our previous existences. Think like that. And even if we're not successful, even if today doesn't turn out to be, fully Krishna conscious, fully absorbed in the service of Sriman Narayana, by some way, somehow, it happens. This material world, there's other things that we have to do, we have to take care of sometimes, just to keep mind and body and soul together. So, okay, so that's there. but we shouldn't give up just because you can't be perfect. We don't make the perfect the enemy of the good or the great. It is good, no, it is great. Sakrideva Prapanaya, to think one time only that you are the servant of the Lord, that you are his property. That's great. That is great. That is a great thing. Even if you did it only one time, and that is enough, according to Lord Rama in Ramacharmasloka. But if you can do it always, that's fine. That's even better. But sometimes people make the perfect the enemy of the great. Right? They say, unless I can think of God always, right? And this is where Varahacharmasloka comes in. Varaha says, even you're in a coma, even you're lying, dying, and you can't think of God because of your mind is so confused at the time of death. You can't think of God at the time of death because the scriptures say, whatever you think of at the time of death, yam yam vapismanan bhavan, right, in the Bhagavad Gita. So it says that you will attain. And naturally, the whole idea of other sampradayas, the whole idea is to perfect Antima Shmiti. Antima Shmiti means remembrance of God at the end, at the last moment of life. And then you will attain. Krishna says, if you remember me, you will attain me. Surely you will attain me. If you don't remember me, he doesn't promise that. If you don't remember me. So it's all about remembering Krishna at the time of death, or remembering Srimanarayana at the time of death. And that's what Ajamil didn't remember him, he remembered his son. So he didn't go directly to moksha, but he got a chance to come and remember again. And this is also what Arjuna says. Arjuna says after Krishna explains Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga in Bhagavad Gita, he says to him, okay, these people do these different processes to attain you or to attain moksha. What happens if they're not complete, if they don't complete the process, if they don't finish the process, if they don't become perfect? What happens to a person who's good or great but not perfect? That's what Arjuna is saying to Krishna. And Krishna is saying, if he's not perfect, then again he has to come take birth again. And he'll get a good birth in a rich family or a family of transcendentalists or yogis. And he'll be automatically attracted to spiritual things again, and he'll take off right where he left off. So if he's 99% perfect, he'll take off in his next life from 99%, and he just has to finish that 1% to be 100%. But still, that process is you have to be 100% through your efforts of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. You have to become 100%. You have to finish your sadhanas. You have to be perfect. And then once you're perfect, remember God at the time of death, and you go to moksha, right? But if you're not perfect, you don't go until you're 100%. But that's why Varahacharmasloka is very important. Ramanuja had this problem too. Ramanuja read the Gita, and he read this in the Gita, and he thought, this isn't fair. It's not fair that somebody, Krishna says, surrender unto me and I'll save you. And Rama says, if you just do it one time, if you just Sakrideva Prapannaya only once, if somebody says, I'm yours, then you'll be saved. Then why is it that somebody at the time of death, if he's not perfect and doesn't remember God at the time of death, why is it that person, according to the Gita, has to take birth again? And Ramanuja was thinking of this, so he asked Kanchipurna, he asked Tirukachinambi. In Kanchipuram, there was a devotee. Tirukachinambi is his Tamil name. Kanchipurna is his Sanskrit name. And he was a lower caste person. And Ramanuja wanted to take the food of his remnants because he was in a lower caste. Ramanuja couldn't take initiation from him, but he was also a disciple of Yamunacharya. And Ramanuja asked him, he said, you are famous, so you're always fanning the deity. In those days, they had people in the temples who were not necessarily the people who were the archakas, but they were fanning, they were providing some air and fanning and cooling for the deity. And apparently this person was so pure he could talk to the deity. So Ramanuja has 6 questions which he asked this person. And he said, Tirukachinambi Kanchipurna, can you ask Devaraj Perumal, Varadaraj Perumal of Kanchipuram, ask the Lord these 6 questions. And one of the questions is, do I have to remember you at the time of death to have attained liberation? Very clearly. And the deity told him back, no, you don't have to remember me. I'll remember you. If you're my devotee, I will remember you. And people will say, okay, this is something Ramanuja asked somebody, and the guy gave a reply, which is supposed to be from the deity, but where's the actual scriptural proof of this? Varaha Purana is the scriptural proof of this. The Puranas are scriptures which are accepted as proof. In the Varaha Purana, Lord Varaha says to Bhumi Devi, his consort, the goddess of the earth, that if somebody is in a coma, if somebody at the time of death, right, he says, Aham smarami madbhakta, I will remember that person, and I will take him, paramam gatim, I will take him to the highest, meaning moksha, to Paramapada, Sri Vaikuntha. So if you have remembered me, if you remember me when you are healthy, right, and when you're able to do those things, when when you don't have the problems, that all these mental problems and physical problems that come at the time of death, of leaving one body and perhaps transiting to another body, right? If at that time you cannot think of me, and some people die just in an instance too, in an accident, bang. They were not thinking, oh, I'm going to die. Not a lot of us get the idea. Maharaj Parikshit, he got 7 days warning, right? You're going to die by the bite of a snake bite in 7 days. So he knew that. So he made a program. He said, okay, so I'll sit down and I will listen to the Shastras for 7 days, because that's the most important thing. So I'm not going to spend my last 7 days eating, drinking, sleeping, having sex, whatever. I'm not going to spend it like that. I'm going to spend it just listening to the Shastra, listening to the Bhagavatam. So because he has 7 days, he was told he had 7 days, but none of us are told that. We're not told you have 7 days. I don't know that I have 7 days. Today may be my last day. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know when I'm going to die. I have no idea. Great souls like Bhishma, they had the benediction that they could leave the body whenever they want. So they were like, okay, I'm not going to leave my body until the sun goes back into the northern hemisphere, and that's a more auspicious time to leave my body. We don't have that. We don't have the 7 days. We don't have the ability to not leave the body leave the body whenever we want. No, we don't have that ability. We don't know when that's going to come. So that means a person who believes that Antima Smriti, or deathbed remembrance, is most important for attaining moksha or not attaining moksha, or continuing in samsara, having another rebirth. If you don't fully do that perfectly at the time of death, if somebody follows that and believes that, which is the doctrine of Bhagavad Gita, by the way, it's in Bhagavad Gita, it's taught in Bhagavad Gita, right? That if someone believes that, then he has to be perfect at every moment, because he doesn't know the moment when he's going to die. So he has to perfect his life, and he has to be always perfect like that. Whereas Lord Varaha says, no, that's not true, actually, right? For my devotees, for persons who are devoted to me, I will remember them. I will remember them. That once, Rama says, just once surrender unto me and say, I'm yours. And that I'll take that excuse to save you. And then if you forget about me, all the other times you've forgotten about me. Once you remembered about me and you thought that you're my servant and you belong to me. But you didn't do that in the past, and you maybe didn't do that in the future. Still, Varaha says, I will remember you at the time of death, and I will take you to that's a very good deal. That's a really good deal. People should take that deal. So Ramanuja understood that this was a question Ramanuja had, because he was studying the Gita, and he thought, this doesn't go with property, because property means that you surrender and then the Lord takes care of you. So it would be very, it would be a little well, it might be fair, let's say, if the Lord says, okay, you surrender to me, but still, until you become perfect, you don't come to me. The Lord could say like that. But Lord Varaha doesn't say that. He doesn't say that. He said, if you remembered me, if you're my devotee, if you were my devotee. In the Gita, Krishna doesn't say that. Krishna says, become my devotee, bow down to me, worship me. He says, thus you will come to me. He doesn't say, bow down to me one time or worship me one time. He doesn't say, he just says it like, yeah, you should do it. And that's why many other people in other sampradayas, they don't see property in the Bhagavad Gita. They only see bhakti yoga, and they say, Krishna says, Sarvadharma pritija mamekam sharanam braja, aham tva sarva papebhyo mamekam sharanam braja. Surrender unto me alone. But that surrender, according to everybody else, has to be lifelong. That surrender has to be at every moment. And if you, at one moment, don't surrender, if you give up that surrender, if you give up that mentality, especially at the time of death, again, you have to take birth. That's Bhagavad Gita. But Lord Varaha says, no. He said, if you have surrendered to me, if you are like that, Lord Rama, first of all, says, if you do one time, Sakrideva Pranaya, I'll save you. And then the question comes, okay, you'll save me, but what about remembering you at the time of death? Don't you have to remember God at the time of death? And Varaha says, no, you don't have to remember him at the time of death. He'll remember you. It's very clear in Sri Vaishnavism, and we have the pramanas from it, from the Puranas, from Varaha Purana, to back up this story of Ramanuja and Tirukatchi Nambi. And so the point, again, being that all that is needed is a realization that we are the property of the Lord, that we are his. But at the same time, does that realization have to be ongoing? Do we have to deeply understand it now and forever until the time of death? Yeah, that will be nice. But what if we don't do that? Again, Varaha says, if you don't do that, you'll be safe. Okay? So just remember that many things are going to be stated in Scripture are the perfect scenario is going to be put forward in Scripture. But does a person have to come up to the perfect scenario, come up to the perfect standard in order to attain the eternal service of the Lord in Vaikuntha, or what we call moksha? The answer is no. It's very clear from Ramacharma Sloka and Varahacharma Sloka. If you just take Krishna Charma Sloka, you can misinterpret it, and you can say, he says, surrender unto me alone, and then you can just give your purport, you can give your interpretation. That surrender has to be lifetime. It has to be from moment to moment. If you miss a moment, then again, you have to come again, and you have to finish, and you're 99% perfect, you're not 100% perfect, and you have to take birth again, right? You can give that interpretation to Bhagavad Gita 1866. Many people give that interpretation to Bhagavad Gita. Why do Sri Vaishnavas not give that interpretation about? It's because we have the Ramayana and we have the Varaha Purana, which tell us that once only, if we think, I am yours, then we'll be saved. And at the time of death, even if we don't think of God, we'll be saved. So it's very important to have all these three. Sometimes, even in Sri Vaishnavism, because in Sri Vaishnavism, the Krishna Charma Sloka is normally the only one which is given in Samashranam. So when we have Panchasamskara, we have these three mantras. We have the Astakshara mantra, Dvaya mantra, and Charma Sloka, meaning Krishna Charma Sloka. And most Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, they don't give Ramacharma Sloka and Varahacharma Sloka. But in the teachings, when they teach, they always teach about those things. And they teach also the interpretation of Krishna Charma Sloka in Bhagavad Gita is always given that if you simply surrender unto Krishna, yeah, he'll save you, like that. And it's never said that there has to be a lifelong surrender, or it has to be a full surrender that doesn't ever waver. It has to be a perfect surrender. Nobody's ever interpreting it like that. So, but it becomes very, very clear if you bring in these other charma slokas, and that's why those are also very important. I would say, to me, to me, those are more important because they're more clear. There's a clear point of doctrine in all these schools of Vaishnavism about the time of death. Do you have to remember God at the time of death? It's a question in every form of Vaishnavism, in probably many other religions also, right? It's answered very clearly in Sri Vaishnavism, and it's answered clearly in the Gita and other places too, and in a different way. The same thing with is surrender something which has to be lifelong and full and perfect, or can it succeed if it's only momentary? That is answered in the Ramayana by Lord Rama. So these are things where there's slight differences. It's not that we're not saying people in other Vaishnava sects or other religions don't also get saved by God if they don't believe this the way that we believe of this doctrine. We're not saying that. We're saying they'll also be saved by the Lord. We believe they'll also be saved by the Lord. They'll also go to Vaikuntha, even if they're Christians or even if they're whatever they are, even if they belong to some other sect. It's not that we're exclusivists and we say, no, therefore we have this idea and we have it backed up by Shastra and everything, and we have a really clear idea of what was of our doctrines, and therefore we don't accept that anybody else has that idea, and therefore, or maybe they have that idea, but maybe they don't know how to express it, or they don't have any scripture to back it up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a reality. It's an absolute truth that God will remember his devotees. Like that. So we don't care that people what people say. You know, they may say, okay, you have to take birth again. No, what you're saying is wrong. You know, or no, you did something wrong. You have to do property again, or you have to do prayaschitta, or you have to do all these things. We don't care what other people say. We know what the Shastra says, and we know it. That's why with these two things, the Ramacharma Sloka and Vrajacharma Sloka makes it all very clear.